Welcome to the Ask Weldon Show, episode 79. Here it is, day 2 of my current swing, and I've actually managed to record both days. So, thumbs up. I'm on a roll. Let's see how consistent I can be. I think LCS will interrupt that quite a bit. Actually, you know what? Come to think of it, I'm going to have free time after LCS, since we don't train as much on those days since we have competition. So, maybe my busiest days will be like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I'm still working through my backlog of questions that I got on Twitter. Reminder that if you want to ask questions, just use the hashtag AskWeldon on Twitter, and it will automatically be scraped and added to my spreadsheet, and then I can answer your question on a show. I normally just do 3 or 4 questions, 3, 4, 5 questions, but I'm going to try to go through a lot of them today, and then I will do some stream questions afterwards as well for all the wonderful people joining me live. I think that's about it. Let's dive into the show. So the first question is from... That's not a question. Next question. Next question is from Dalton, Twitter, @saltylol with 2 Y's. What can be expected from the new esports coaches that are certified or graduated from esportcoaching.net? How can teams, and more importantly team owners, know what they're getting with these new coaches? So I'm starting an initiative called esportcoaching.net, where we're ECN, Esport Coaching Network, where we're basically building a coach training course, and we're modeling it after the coach training curriculum at the University of Jyväskylä in Finland, which is the central sports school of Finland, and they have a 4-year degree in coaching. And we're basically turning that into an online course. And so it'll have an online course, a practical section where you have to find a position and have supervised experience, and then kind of an assessment, exit kind of thing. And then we'll certify you as an Esport Coaching Network coach. And I would expect that people who have the certificate know how to coach people, and what happens inside of somebody's brain when you're trying to change their behavior so that you can change their behavior for the better. I was really dismayed when I was watching an interview with Immortals coach Dylan the other day, and I think it was Travis on Yahoo Esports interviewed him, and he said, how can you tell if a coach is effective? And he was like, well, when you look at their pick ban. And I was just like, so essentially the definition of a coach in League of Legends right now is they pick and they ban champions. They don't actually teach people how to play the game better and how to beat other people. So that's really depressing to me. And I want to change that. It's tough though, because League is not a solved sport yet. It's not kind of like chess, where there's this progression that you can go through to kind of be taught how to play chess, or even more violin, where you can be clearly brought from 0 to expert by an instructor. So because it hasn't been around long enough to be solved, but at least there are systems that can bring you up to that level, and there's ways of pushing that level beyond and examining the game and breaking it apart, and people aren't iterating on that very much. So I think that the number one step is to understand human behavior and how behavior change happens, and to be really knowledgeable at League of Legends. Now the Esport Coaching Network certification is going to be mostly about general coaching, and then eventually we'll add training in specific games, but that's kind of less important. You come to the table with what you come with in terms of game knowledge, and then we want to kind of train it for coaching. So that's something I'm working on probably in the off season. Probably not going to happen much this summer, but the 2 people that are working on it right now, one of them is a educational designer, and the other one is an adult education specialist. And so we have the curriculum set, and we're basically kind of dividing out the learning outcomes into the different courses right now, and setting up what is going to be in each section, and we'll record that probably sometime later this year. So it'll be in the future, not right now though. Meanwhile, esportcoaching.net, what we try to do is have live workshops and stuff like that. There haven't been any in a month or so because I've been busy and other people in the network haven't really organized them, but they might happen if I get some free time. Especially if TSM loses and doesn't go to playoffs, and I just am sitting on my hands after August 14th. Not going to happen. Good question, Dalton. Thanks. Next question. Sam Payne asks, is it better to reveal your intentions to a player when trying to coach a team or to keep them hidden? It's better to reveal your intentions because then they can help you. Your job is to help people do what they want to do but can't. So you basically want to teach them like how and why they're doing it. And yeah, tell them. Hi, chat, Twitch chat. By the way, those of you watching this on YouTube later, I stream it live on Twitch, so come join us and you can ask questions directly in the chat. Next question is from Saeed. Why do you refer to League of Legends pro players as athletes, and why do you consider esport being a sport? So for me, something that's athletic or a sport involves a motor reflex that you have to train through volume and intensity. So if you consider something like chess, where you can train it, you can have good reflexes or bad reflexes, and it doesn't really matter. And you train it like in terms of mental pattern and study. But for League of Legends, it doesn't matter how analytical and smart you are about the game, you have to play it, which means you have to see something, instantly interpret it, react, and click. And all of the decision making that you think you hear when you see a caster make the game and you think somebody's considering their decision in the game, it's actually automatic. So like shot callers and people who make decisions in the game, they don't think about their decisions. They see a pattern, they react to it, either verbally or like intuitively or, you know, with a reflex. And that is an athletic thing. It's the same thing whether you're like clicking a league button or shooting a gun or throwing a javelin. You kind of like sense the world, and you have a very highly trained, crafted motor reflex that you use to manipulate the world in order to like achieve a competitive result. And so in League of Legends, your sensory input is like your fingers and your eyes and a little bit your ears too. And then you kind of like react to that. You amalgamate it all into a reflex and you click in a very precise way. And so that is essentially the same skill or sporting skill that you need for any other sport. Aside from like this, so when you think of soccer, like there's two components, right? There's the part where you kick the ball, which is kind of like esport. It's like a very highly mechanical and visually interpreted pattern of perfect movement. And then there's the sheer fitness you need to run around that much. And those are kind of two separate things, right? So esport doesn't really have the fitness aspect, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't have the rest of the stuff that makes a skilled sport a sport. And yeah, so if you look at any sort of craft like chess or League of Legends or soccer, there's like a bell curve. And people who are at the top of that curve and who are world-class at what they do kind of deserve titles. So I call them athletes because they train just as hard and long as pretty much any other athlete in any other sport. Marcus asks, at Marcus Puascari on Twitter, my greatest dream is to be involved in esport coaching. Any tips? Yes. Join the esportcoaching.net. And start now. Just start coaching. I started coaching when I was like 16, and I haven't stopped. So 16, 17 years. And along the way, I went and I educated myself in the science of coaching. And yeah, so the sooner you start, the better you'll be. Usually coaching trajectory, if you look at it like coaching careers, it's around like mid to late 30s that people start becoming like assistant to head coaches or like kind of or coaches at the elite level. And then it's like early 40s, mid 40s, people start getting like head coaching at the elite level or like at the amateur level or whatever level they're kind of focusing on, if you know, youth coaching, stuff like that. So usually you want to start in your mid 20s to early 20s, and you usually have like a 15 to 20-year career kind of like working your way up in the orgs and like in terms of knowledge and how to manipulate people's behavior for their benefit and like what exactly you do. That's my advice. Gabriel asks, how do I overcome that fear of underperforming against a friend because I need to win or a known person that I know may beat me? So like when you're in a game like League of Legends and you see that name card and you're like, okay, this has personal meaning to me. So it's kind of like double lift playing against CLG versus Phoenix One this weekend, right? So against Phoenix One, it's just like, it's a team. In CLG though, it's people you know. You're playing against the bot lane. Afromu, his ex support. So one way you do it is turn off nameplates. so that you can make whoever you're playing against a faceless void. And then also you depersonalize them, so you think of yourself as kind of like competing with yourself instead of them. So you're trying to be the best version of what you can be, completely independent of who you're facing. And then you really need the skill called a mindfulness, where you move past the past and back into the present. So anytime you make a mistake, your mind's going to dwell on it, and the amount of energy and focus you expend there distracts you from what you should be focusing on in the present moment. So you need this skill of like wrenching your mind out of rumination on all of the mistakes that you made and what that looks like and what people think of you, and into the present moment to focus on your execution and without judgment. So what you did was not good or bad, it just was, and now this is the current state of reality, and you have to deal with it and try to do your best. Next question is from Stevie. Do you believe that you should focus on improving your strengths or improving your weaknesses and try to be a more complete player? Both. That's easy. Improve your strengths and your weaknesses. Next question is from Healthy Spoon GG, written out exactly like you'd expect it to be on Twitter. And they ask, I am trying to improve my cooldown awareness in teamfights and before teamfights. How can I accelerate this process? The way I did this was I started tracking every cooldown that it was like happening in a team fight. So flash or dragon or flash or teleport or actually those are the only two that I cared about, flash and teleport. Anything else isn't really worth tracking, I don't think. Maybe heal, actually. Barrier isn't really used that much anymore. And then add, just while you're doing that, add to that dragon. I guess you don't really need to time dragon and Baron anymore, so that's kind of pointless, but you can like make it a habit to, when it's 2 minutes or 1 minute to Baron or to dragon, that you like notify your team. And then you just kind of like type it up and you copy paste the cooldowns and you prep people before a fight. Before it looks like you're gonna get in a skirmish, you prep people with the target. So you look at the cooldowns and you think, who would be a good target in this fight? And then you say like, Vayne doesn't have flash for another minute. And then you say to your team like, Vayne no flash. And then you target Vayne. And then you start winning off of the knowledge that you deployed. So it feels good because it actually has an impact on the game, which motivates you to do it. And then you gain rank because of it. And then you're like, yeah. And then you get better at it. So that's my recommendation. Also, if somebody uses like an ult, and then you have a skirmish later, like just remind your team they don't have this ult. It's kind of key. Now, just going to hop over to the live stream real quick. Ladies Man 2013 says, how do I get my cat to calm down? Is saying no loudly a good idea? Sometimes I use a vacuum because she's scared of it. I personally am not an expert in cats or cat behavior, and so I will push that off to all of the Twitch chat experts on cats. And I know they're experts on cats because they're constantly linking me cat pictures on Reddit. Okay, the next question is from Marvin, and he asks, how do I train the neocortex? What kind of exercise would you recommend to me? So the neonatal cortex, like logic center of the brain, essentially everything in front of the animal brain that makes us human. So you have the brain stem and like the old brain that's kind of like sitting on there, and then the new cortex on the front, which is huge and that you don't really see in other animals all that much. Like cats don't have a very big one. You don't train it. It's not like part of the brain that you train. It's just a region of the brain that you could identify on a map or something like that. It does tons of different things. So I think what you're asking is, how do you train your logic, I guess? And that is pretty straightforward. You just treat League of Legends like a system or a game, and you try to like play out the system. You try to understand it. You try to go read books like The Art of War and game theory books and economic theory books, and you look at behavior and you try to tease out the system from the game, and then you you make assumptions and predictions, and then you test them, and then you try to figure out why you were wrong, and then you correct them. And that's kind of like how I mostly train my logic. Back to the stream. Serp the Terp asks, have you seen any of the science on power posing before performing? I haven't seen any of the science. I haven't read any. Summer Scott, I wrote an article on power posing on my blog, mindgames.gg, and her Twitter handle is SVEZTA. She'd be a really good person to ask about that. I think that she is quite knowledgeable about power posing. Akenv1 asks, how can I perform play as good as humanly possible? things outside of the game like morning routines, yoga, etc. Aha, okay, so first of all, you want to improve your gratefulness so that you can anti-tilt. So write a gratefulness journal every morning. List a couple things you're grateful for, get kind of in that mode. Then you want to meditate. You want to take a little bit of caffeine. You want to make sure you have enough blood glucose. You want to make sure that you exercise within like 3 to 4 hours of the training so that you can kind of like process that. You want to make sure that you get like solid sleep, 8, 9, 10 hours, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, more like 8 plus. And you want to make sure that you're eating a healthy mixture of fats in terms of omega-3, 6, and 12. Like it should be like 1 to 1 to 1 essentially. You probably don't need to worry about the 12 since that's like 99.9% of our diets nowadays. You probably do need to worry about the 3 and the 6, so you should take a pill for that to increase the density of 3 and 6 omega-3, omega-6 fats in your body. And what else? If you're on any drugs, like for things that are preventable through exercise or diet, you should try to exercise or diet instead of take the drugs. Next question is from Anthony Collins. Ant Collins Rar, R-A-W-R on Twitter. And he asks, I'm looking to change fields. Previously worked as a translator, kind of manager, life coach for a team in Thailand for the joy of it. And I've returned to Australia where I have taken up my trained proper profession. This is not checked as anonymous. So basically he said I could use it on stream, so I hope he doesn't mind. Trained as a professional chef, and a darn good one, I might add, but I have not found that as satisfying as it once was. I'm trying to return to the League of Legends industry, but I'm having trouble cracking back in. If you had the time, can you suggest areas I can work on to stand out and make myself better? Suggest courses or training? Yeah, so I suggest join esportcoaching.net and start building a personal brand like I did 4 years ago when I started building my own personal brand on the internet and producing content around esport coaching. And then people find that, and then that's your resume. Stands out. So you have to learn about marketing, essentially, is what I'm saying. According to a well-thought-out study I've been doing, I think I've obtained how to make 5 players react as one. Is this possible? Says Cameron Ratcliffe. Reading his details. I'm not exactly sure, like, react as one, like, as in trust each other. Yeah. Yep. That's what I do. That's the goal. So yes, and it's not really easy, but it's possible. From Anonymous. How does one go about the academic study of sports psychology, especially as an undergrad, as that is the most relevant to me and likely others? Okay, it depends on your paradigm. So you can do quantitative, qualitative studies, and then it depends on the methodology you want to use. So you can do, I did interpretive phenomenological analysis for my one of my studies, and then for another one I did like just purely quantitative, like subjective measuring of physical activity. So this is a really tough question. Okay, here's what you do. Go find a bunch of sports psychology journals and get all the latest versions of them, so the latest month, which you should have access to if you're in university. Just search sports psychology and get all the journals with the title sports psychology or exercise psychology or performance psychology in them, and then read them all. And then do that again a few months later when the new ones come out, and then do that again a few months later when the new one comes out, and saturate yourself in the current conversation around the research on sports psychology and find out what it is that we know. There's a little circle there, and then within there you'll see gaps, things we don't know. And what people do is they craft theories to try to predict things that we don't know, and then they test those theories to see if they're accurate or not. So what you do is you find theories that are attempting to predict the unknown and are more or less validated, in, for example, Greece, but not in Finland, or in Thai, but not in English, or in English, but not in Spanish. And then you contribute to that research by replicating the study with tweaks, by pushing the limits, by adapting it, by putting in your own kind of idea. When they find a study that or a theory that kind of fails in a certain instance, you say, well, maybe it's because of this, and you adapt the theory and you try it and you test it in the clinical setting, and then you push the edge of our knowledge like one step further beyond what we know into what we don't know by creating a model and then testing that model for the predictions that it should make, going and seeing if those predictions come true. And then you know if it was accurate or not. And if you repeat that enough, then you can kind of like see the holes in it and improve it. So that's essentially how you do research. And the first step of that is to become an expert in the field. And so that means get all the sports psychology research you can and just read it every single month when it comes out, over and over and over again for years or a year or whatever. Do not, I repeat, do not go to 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago and just read some research and then think that you want to replicate it, because the conversation has moved on. I promise. That research 10 years ago, that was a conversation like in a room. If you think of like the journals where we publish academic research as a conversation between researchers around the world that is kind of like vetted, then the conversation that was happening 10 years ago was interesting then, and people like did stuff about it. And in the previous like 10 years since that conversation took place, progress has been made on all of those topics. So if you go and do research based on a conversation from 10 years ago, it's going to be like you go to a party, okay, and it's 2016 and you walk to this cool clique in the corner and you're like, hey dude, and then you like talk about your favorite artist from like 2004 and you're like, yeah, did you see that song on TV yesterday from like, you like some YouTube video from like when we were in college in 2002 about shoes. You're like, oh my god, shoes, and they're like, we were actually talking about cat videos, but it's awkward now. So that's what it's like when you do research on really old conversations. It's like jumping into a clique at a party, saying something totally awkward and like off topic and like from 10 years ago, and then everybody stares at you and goes, when's this guy gonna leave so we can go back to our normal kind of conversation? So yeah, get current on the conversations that are happening right now. What do we know, what do we not know, and then find that edge and research it. And you can use an advisor to help you on that. Find the edge, like find the thing that interests you, find a journal that interests you or an article. Be like, yes, I want to research this. Go find an advisor. The advisor will be an expert in some sort of methodology and in some sort of paradigm. And then you just tell them, okay, I'm going to do whatever paradigm and methodology that you're an expert in, and then they guide you through it. And the topic is the kind of like the topic that you chose from the journal article. Good question. Next question is from Austin, Stormin Mormon, LOL. And he asks, I'm very focused on training, so that now whenever I sit down and relax and watch a show, I lose my drive. How do I relax and stay motivated? So how do I relax but also stay motivated to train? And it sounds like TV nullifies that. So don't watch a show. Do some sort of exercise or some sort of activity that stimulates your brain that helps feed into it. So I like to structure all of my activities feeding into a single one. So if I'm trying to get good at League, for example, I would exercise, thinking about like how I'm going to improve my fitness for that purpose, or timing it around my training. I would read books about game theory. I would study economic and behavioral theory, and I would think about how that interacts in play. I would build a personal brand around the sport and like market around it, learn how about marketing in the sport, kind of follow the community. And then in your downtime, you can like socialize on social media with those people and see the content they produce and produce content with them. So all of those things can be like a more productive downtime than watching a show of some sort. Next question is from Kashmir Fire. Is there a benefit to smurfing? Yes. It can mentally relax you so you're not super stressed out. And so it's a way of hacking your brain to be a little bit more chill about your laddering, which is cool. And this one is from Akeem1026. Do you have any recommendations for effective practice when you are limited time per day to play League? Play more games or review. I recommend review of the games that you played and kind of noticing things that you didn't notice because in the heat of the moment, and then focusing more on the games that you play. And I recommend, as before, playing champions that are more punishing of your mistakes so that your mistakes are more painful and less easy to smooth over when you're playing like the kind of easy mode, hard carry champions like massive bruisers that just build a bunch of HP and are impossible to kill, and you can make all sorts of mistakes and not get punished for it. So then you don't learn as fast. Anonymous question. My dream is to be an esport coach. I've seen most of your videos, so I know you say to volunteer to get some coaching experience, but not sure I have that option. What else can I do to get noticed? Build a brand. Build a brand. Then you have a platform. What is a brand? You go and you find a channel and you start producing content on it. Content that is valuable to other people in some way. And then you put it out there. You push your content. Anonymous. I was wondering, how do you get people on board about joining your team when they aren't that sure about getting into esports and what would be a good training timetable? So how do you get people to join your team when they're not sure of all in on esports? Pay them a salary, and then they'll be like, ooh, okay, I'll try this, see if it works out. So there's a win-win for them. Like, they either get a salary and it doesn't work out, or they get a salary and it does work out. Woo. And then a good training timetable is 6 to 8 hours of training, and then 1 to 2 hours of like review. How'd you get in the esports scene as a psychologist? I'm not a psychologist, I'm a psychology trainer, and I built a brand and then used it to push myself, and then people hired me. Marketing, that's how I did it. Question from Kaibo Gaming. What do you think about age in League of Legends? I'm 20, training to be a pro, but not masters yet. Is it too late for me? No. Your physical reflexes do not slow down until late 30s, and then if you train them, they can be sustained until your 50s. So you really only get smarter, more mentally focused, more mentally resilient, and better as you age. So the question is, do you have time to train? And that is something you should choose dependent on the sport you play. So like Counter-Strike is much easier to drill, which means you can, as you decrease the volume, you can increase the intensity or the drilling that you do, and you can maintain like the mechanical skill set necessary. League of Legends, you cannot do sandbox mode, you can't drill the game. So it requires much more volume because you cannot ramp up the intensity, because you can't break the game apart into discrete chunks and repeat it over and over again. So what you have to do is you have to like play a solo queue game and hope that 1 or 2 times in that game you get to train the thing you need to train. And usually you don't, so then you have to train like another solo queue game. So you have to train for like 12, 13, 14, 15 hours a day in order to kind of get the training that you need to compete with the other people who are training 12, 13, 14 hours. You can't train smarter in League. It's impossible because you can't design training. You can only train more. So it's not the best esport for you if you're aging into a stage of life where you need to spend volume time at it. So like as you get a family, as you get kids, as you get a wife, you need to be in a sport that you can actually like fundamentally work on. And make sure that you choose well if you start to specialize. Anonymous question. How do you go about giving advice to people that are stubborn and unwilling to change? Additionally, if you recognize yourself as a stubborn person, how do you become better at accepting advice? Self-awareness is number 1. So if you are stubborn and you know it, you're probably fine. How do you go about giving advice to people that are stubborn or unwilling to change? You just school them in the face with knowledge. And you also listen, because probably the problem is you. At least that's what I find. When I run into somebody who's stubborn, I usually find out it's because of me. Anonymous question. As a woman playing League, I often get phrases like, "You'll never be good, women lack the drive to be professional," which isn't the case at all. I am trying to become a professional player. As of right now, I am mid-diamond. My question is, when people tell me, or I hear people saying about women in professional game, it really demotivates me. So my question is, how do you keep yourself motivated even though there's the possibility of abuse, negativity towards you, if you do finally achieve your goals? Okay, so number 1, you have to turn all of that into drive. You have to, I think, as a pioneer in a field, you have to like own it. You have to desire to prove them wrong so badly that you like literally eat it. Comes your way and you're just like if you want to be a pioneer. If you don't want to be a pioneer, you have to find role models to look up to. And when you suffer, which will happen because you're a woman in League or in esport at all right now, which is boy activity invented by boys for boys, and so they're being stupid boys and trying to keep everybody else out. So what you need to do is you need to have grit and find role models so that when you do suffer, you have somebody to talk to about it. A support group is the best idea in the world. So find other women who have made it and find out if you can join a support group of some sort. Second question is, I'm scared of attempting to put myself out there with all the hype. A lot of people have considered the hype around certain women in the scene a failure. I'm afraid that if I try to promote myself, I'll be taken in the same light. I wouldn't worry about it. Whether you promote yourself or not, it's not going to go well. So I'd just say, like, do what feels best. If you feel like you should be defending yourself, promoting yourself, then you should do it. And if not, you should just, like, under the radar, just, like, put in the work to be the best. And once you're, like, you know, top 5, top 20 challenge in the world repeatedly for, like, months on end, people will take notice, and it won't matter whether you're promoting yourself or not, because the latter does not lie. Third and final question. I find it hard to get over the fact that in a largely male-dominated community, female players are considered to always be worse regardless of where they rank. At my rank, I've had multiple people calling me bad for the sole reason that I'm not part of the masses of being male, even though they're in the same rank or division as me. So my question is, being afraid of a failure, if I fail, I'm just going to be another number on the board of women who don't succeed. That's a lot of pressure. Yeah, so take the pressure off you. You're just going to be you, whether you succeed or fail. It doesn't emblematically mean anything about your gender or your race or your family or anything. It's just you. You do what you want. And if you succeed at it, great. And if you don't, it doesn't really matter, because you just changed your mind at what you wanted to focus on. You didn't have enough drive or motivation to become world class in this, and so you decided to change your focus, which is not a problem at all. I didn't have enough drive to be a world class swimmer, and I changed my drive, or I followed my focus or my motivation. So whatever. As far as the, like, male dominated community and being bad, women see risk analysis very differently than men. Not very differently, okay. Females process risk differently than men. They're more accurate in predicting risk. So what we see in studies, or what it has been seen in studies, is that women make better predictors of, for example, the stock market or risk analysis things. If you look at the, like, charts of who the best performers are at mutual funds and stuff like that, it will be all women. So you are probably very good at assessing the fact that you're not going to be successful, which can be a detriment, because you kind of need to understand that you might not be successful in order to keep pushing forward. And that's why I recommend the support group. Again, that you don't pay attention to your risk analysis, and you're understanding that actually your chance of making it is very low. Whether you're a woman or a man, it's just very low. And so instead of, like, having that short circuit you and sabotage you, you should see your other benefits to the journey. You should find other benefits to striving to be the best that you can carry over into the next thing you do. Even if you don't end up as a pro league player, where does that take you next? And then you can benefit from the risk analysis of saying, like, well, even if this doesn't work, I have carried forward the effects. And so for that, like, you might focus on marketing and how you market yourself. You might focus on brand building. You might focus on social media usage. You might focus on content production around what you do. You might focus on your learning system, so how you learn so that you can replicate it in the next thing you do. You might focus on like leadership and other qualities that you kind of think are transferable, but in any way you want to lower your risk of failure, you should increase your transferables that you get out of it, and then failure doesn't mean as much, and so the risk kind of drops away. I'm going to jump over to the stream real quick and answer a couple questions. I have a career in mental health, but I barely got through my bachelor's degree. Now I want to become a teacher, just a shot in the dark. But do you have any advice on things you can do to help me get accepted into a post-grad teaching credential program? Yes, Coral Wolf, apply to lots of them. Thresh 99999. Oh, and also go volunteer in schools. So it's on your resume when you apply. What's the best time to sleep for teams? When you're tired, and then wake up when you're not. Obviously, you want to sleep on the circadian cycle, if possible. Ladies Man 2013, I just want to say how happy I am that you're a TSM coach. Oh, thanks. What do you recommend for Lind EU? What do you recommend for wrist stretching? What exercise would you recommend for somebody who plays a lot of league? I recommend gymnastics style wrist stretching. So it starts with like I can't really show you. I'll make a video for it later for you. Is any of the gear you were talking about still available? Yes, but it's all in Finland, so don't have any with me. But if you want TSM gear, I'm loaded with that right now. I'm probably not going to have time to mail any of it out, though, so you're just going to have to come by and grab it at the LCS. I'll hand out wristbands and stuff like that when I'm there. Next one's from Anonymous. What are your thoughts on playing a rhythm game like Osu to help you practice LOL? Playing Osu probably helps you practice Osu. Okay. That's all I have time for tonight. Whew. I will film episode 80 tomorrow after playing 2 games on probably an Assassin Champion. Episode 80. Thanks for coming out, guys. Let me hop over to the stream and answer a few more questions. And let my posture die a little bit. Hold myself up there that long at 1:30 in the morning. It's pretty exhausting. LOL adjective. Hey, Weldon, I'm a pretty positive person, but I occasionally find myself under tilt. How do I recover? Tried listening to non-aggressive music that I really enjoy. Controlling my breathing aren't effective, efficient solutions that I can do during game. I don't really have a short answer for this. Don't tilt. Tilting is a skill. Not tilting is a skill, so you just choose not to do it and you train yourself to make that choice. And if it's hard, notice the points that you tilted before but you don't tilt anymore, and then figure out what you did and then extend that to the next level of torture that you have and don't tilt there. And then you'll notice there are parts when you tilt, but they're the harder ones and you get better at it. You just keep getting better at it. Aus Leister. Thoughts on military principles that can be utilized in competitive sense, i.e. communication, or pressure, leadership, etc.? All of them, I guess. Have you read Quiet Leadership by David Rock? No, I have not. I found it to be highly useful for coaching via facilitation using a lot of models that and applying neuroscience. Could be. I don't know. Is he a neuroscientific researcher? I don't read books. I mostly read research articles. So I might have read research if he's a doctor and he has done research on the brain. Otherwise, probably haven't read him. Am I going to be working with other TSM teams? Can't really talk about that. Ladies man, will you be coaching next split as well? Can't really comment. Do you see yourself going back to Finland? Yes, definitely going back to Finland in the future at some point. I'm not settling in America long term. Again, probably lived here for 29 years and from birth until 23 and then various times in there. And definitely don't want my kids to get all shot up. How are you so smart? I'm not smart. I just was really motivated about what I studied, so I studied it hard. Super hard. Motivation's key. Whatever you're doing, if you're motivated at it, it appears amazing to other people who are unmotivated by it or don't care about it, and so think it's amazing. Okay. Night, peeps. Appreciate you coming out. Thank you, Sushi Roll 13, for this sweet overlay. Might not use it forever, but it looks cool for now, so. Not really sure what else to do. I guess I'll just sign off. It's funny how streams die, you know, they just kind of like fade away as you say goodnight. Get this awesome TSM chair. You can see the logo right there. It's super comfy, almost as comfy as the super comfortable jackets. Lena designed these. They are amazing. Best made piece of clothing in Esport, in my opinion. I barely ever take mine off when I'm inside. Really recommend them. Okay, mind game.